Welcome to the 83rd Marshall County REMC Annual Meeting. Thank you for joining us. I am Richard Leeper, Chairman of the Board of Directors. Minutes of today's business meeting will be recorded by John Redinger, Secretary Treasurer of the Board of Directors, and David Fortin, representing Stevens Travis Fortin Law Office, will serve as parliamentarian. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order.
Welcome to this year's edition of the Marshall County Rural Electric Membership Corporation Annual Meeting, being held April 5th, 2022. I, John Redinger, being first duly sworn on oath, deposes and says that he is the duly elected, qualified, and acting secretary of the Marshall County Rural Electric Membership Corporation, and that on February 28th, he mailed to each member of the cooperative at his address, as it appears on the records of the cooperative, a notice of the annual meeting of the members of the cooperative to be held on April 5th, 2022, by depositing such notice with postage thereon addressed to the address that we have on record at the United States Mail, and that the attached is foregoing is true and the correct copy of such notice. And that actual notice appeared inside the Indiana Connections magazine, Marshall County edition, on page 6 on the red bar on the left side of the magazine. At this point in time, we'll turn the meeting back to Rich, who can look at the minutes from last year's meeting.
We will now have action on the 2021 annual meeting minutes as presented in the Indiana Connection. We have a motion and a second to accept as presented. It is the opinion of the chair that motion passed. Now, John Redinger will present the financial report.
Hello. We'd like to welcome you to the financial report this year, and that report can be found on page 8 of the same Indiana Connections magazine. All in all, we had a good year this year. We had the auditors from London Witty Group come to the board as they completed their audit, and the main thing the board members are concerned in is getting a clean audit, which means that they found no material issues with any of the things that they checked, and so they're saying what numbers that the accountants had is what was actually in the reports. At the top half of that page, on page 8, we've got a condensed financial statement. I won't spend a lot of time in going through those numbers and what the different categories are, but let me say that you as members own quite a valuable asset here in the county that's used to provide the electricity to yourselves and fellow members of the cooperation. So I guess one thing I will point out is that the value of the plant that we have in service is $42 million and some change after we depreciate the assets that we've invested. So we actually have a total of over $57 million, and as we get into escalating prices, some of these things just keep getting bigger and bigger. The investments that we're making to continue to serve power reliable and affordable goes up. So we appreciate that. And then one thing that I will spend a little time on is the distribution chart of the graphic that shows where does your dollar spent when you send $1 worth of payment into the REMC, where does it go? 57% of that, the biggest slice of the pie, is actually going from REMC to our power provider, Wabash Valley, that works with cooperatives in Indiana, Illinois, and Missouri. Like everything else, their costs are going up, so that percentage stays somewhere in the 55 to 60% range. The next biggest slice of the pie is operating expenses. That pays for the lines and the poles and the meters and the trucks for the workers to be able to go out. It also includes the ability to send the bills out, to collect them back, and again, that's 26%. We've got that investment. Depreciation is the next big chunk of the pie at almost 9%. So we depreciate assets that we put in service just like any other business. We have interest expense of 5 cents or 5% of the total. Taxes are a small sliver, but 1.4%. And then we actually ended up with a 1.2% of operating margin at the end of the year. So sometimes when we put plans together to make a line or a transmission or a substation investment, we actually apply for loans. We get the loans approved ahead of time of getting materials and being able to put back and forth, and that's why from year to year sometimes the cash on hand balance will vary. But all in all, we had a good year last year. We are going to have to watch escalating prices and just see how things go. We haven't had a rate increase for about 11 years, and the board's trying to hold if we don't need to put that in place, but with the rising prices, that's a possibility. One other thing that the members have done is through Operation Roundup, which there's a quick report on page 7 of the Connections magazine. In this past year, we've donated over $20,000 to nonprofit organizations in the county that go to help kind of use for those organizations to help fund some very good projects within the county. And if your county is if your organization's a not-profit, you could check into the possibilities of applying for one of those grants. Thank you, and have
We
a
have
good
a
day.
motion and a second to accept the treasurer's financial report for 2021. It is the opinion of the chair that motion passed. A point of order appealing the adoption of the secretary treasurer's report may be raised at a subsequent meeting of the members.
Hello, I'm David Fortin, attorney for the REMC, here to read the minutes of the nominating committee. The nominating committee of the Marshall County Rural Electric Membership Corporation met pursuant to their notice at the REMC office on January 14th, 2022. The purpose of the nominating committee was to select candidates for directors to be voted on at the annual meeting on April 5th, 2022. The following members of the nominating committee were present: John Langfeld, David Ringer, Thomas Sellner, Kay Schultz, and John Villard were present. David Llewellyn, CEO, was present to provide the nominating committee with the bylaws that outline the duties and responsibilities of the directors and of the nominating committee. Robin Roberts, REMC director, was present representing the board as required in the bylaws for observation of the nominating committee process. Thomas Sellner was elected to serve as chairman, and committee member John Langfeld was selected as secretary. After discussing the qualifications of members, the following REMC members were selected as candidates for director to be voted on by the members at the annual meeting on April 5th, 2022. Brian Blosser, Craig Hawley, Jeffrey Sellner. There being no further business to come before the nominating committee, the meeting was adjourned. And that concludes the minutes of the nominating committee.
Hello, I am Dave Llewellyn, and I'm honored to be the president and CEO of Marshall County REMC. I would like to welcome you to the 83rd Marshall County Annual Membership Meeting. I want to thank you for taking the time to participate in this important annual cooperative event. I hope each of you were able to vote in our director election that was open for the first time to online and mail-in balloting. One of the 7 co-op principles is democratic member control, which is why the annual election of directors is so important. The board, using our cooperative bylaws, helps govern and direct all important decisions of Marshall County REMC. In fact, we are owned by you, the member. Members have equal voting rights, which means 1 member, 1 vote, and your participation and input in this annual election process is vital not only to the success of Marshall County REMC, but ensures we meet your needs and expectations as members. While we have been able to maintain our required voting quorum of 2% of membership in years past, the board decided this year it was time to take steps, like most other co-ops, to make voting more accessible to all of our members. Like many rural electric co-ops, Marshall County REMC faces a number of challenges and uncertainties during this turbulent and unprecedented time in our country. We are experiencing slow load growth, high inflation, and rising costs across the board, including power production and materials, to name a few, making it much more difficult to maintain affordability that our members have come to expect and deserve. Our co-op will continue to face new challenges in this rapidly changing environment, being driven by new technologies and government policy. As more of our members employ different technologies, such as electric vehicles, battery storage, and distributed energy resources, like solar in their homes and businesses, we as your electric provider must be ready. Another challenge today is our members' growing needs and expectations related to power quality and reliability. Members are much more demanding and much less tolerant to power interruptions causing blinks and outages in this modern world, sometimes holding us to an almost impossible standard. Another big challenge is helping policymakers understand the complexity involved in maintaining grid stability necessary for reliable electricity as we rapidly trend toward the aggressive pursuit of carbon legislation that is driving the shutdown of traditional coal and other baseload power production. This is something that I agree needs to be addressed, but not without great understanding and careful planning. Also, I think we need to make sure the policymakers and the American people fully understand this comes with a huge price tag, and we need to know what that cost is and how it will impact Americans across the country. In order for this all to work, we need massive transmission upgrades and new transmission construction to accommodate new technologies like the interconnection of large-scale wind and solar. Transmission lines are the high-voltage lines that transport electricity across the country that you typically see on the large tower structures. These take years to build and come with a lot of red tape, public opposition, all at an astonishing cost, thus further driving up the cost of electric. Furthermore, while cybersecurity has been a topic in the past in our industry for years, with the escalating situation with Ukraine and Russia and the increased possibility of cyber attacks against U.S. critical infrastructure, this is another major growing concern that we are constantly monitoring and preparing to defend against. With all this being said, I'm not trying to scare you or paint a picture of doom and gloom, but instead want you to know and find comfort in the fact that Marshall County REMC has a great board of directors and staff that work hard every day on your behalf to stay ahead of these ever-increasing challenges and uncertainties. Also, through the cooperative network and partnerships with organizations like Indiana Electric Cooperatives, our statewide organization, Wabash Valley Power Alliance, our wholesale power provider, and the National Rural Electric Cooperative Association, to name a few, we have direct access to industry experts that are constantly providing us with a wealth of resources and information so we can best be prepared and informed when making decisions locally that ultimately impact you, the member. Also, these organizations have legislative and legal staff that all work together to fight year-round on your behalf at all levels of government. This willingness to work amongst cooperatives is what cooperatives are all about. In fact, cooperation amongst cooperatives is one of our cooperative model's 7 guiding principles. By working together through local, national, and regional and international structures, cooperatives improve services, bolster local economies, and deal more effectively with social and community needs. It's hard to believe my first year as Marshall County CEO has already come to an end, and we are already well into my 2nd year. I want to take this opportunity to give members a high-level overview of what we'll be working on for the remainder of 2022. To start off, work has begun to install a new roof on our warehouse and rubber membrane on the entire front office roof of Marshall County REMC. As you can imagine, this is a very expensive project, but is much needed. We recently had American Energy Services, our pole testing contractor, test over 3,100 poles in the northeast part of our system from US 30 and from US 31, or from US 30 north and from US 31 east. By the end of the year, our goal is to change out roughly 500 poles that were identified as bad as a result of this testing. Another project that will span several years is the replacement of all the old, unsafe, and unreliable copper wire within our system. We will complete this work as time and availability of materials allow. Currently, getting materials is a big issue with all the supply chain issues and problems we are currently experiencing. We are scheduled to also have a new Marco substation complete and online by December 31st of this year. The new substation will be located on 18th Road, just east of Michigan Road, and will replace the existing NIPSCO metering point currently being used. The substation will feed south of Argus and all the way from Mentone to Culver, adding reliability and much needed capacity to our system. Marshall County Fiber, which is our partnership with Rochester Telephone that was formed in 2018, has already made fiber optic internet available to more than 2,200 residents of Marshall County, where we currently have over 650 active subscribers. This year, we are committed to continue the build out of fiber to the area around the chain of lakes, which will bring fiber to the home to an additional 600 homes from Lake Latonka all the way to Lawrence Lake. Like many of you know, fiber optic internet is extremely expensive to build, so we are constantly looking for ways for funding and the ability to continue the fiber build-out project within the county. In recent years, there has been a huge amount of grant money available for the build-out of fiber throughout federal, state, local programs, bringing high-speed internet to rural America. We have been successful at getting some of this available funding and will continue to actively pursue these funding opportunities as they arise. As funding allows, we plan on the continued build-out of fiber in the county in the coming years through this great partnership. Lastly, we are currently working with cooperative finance to complete an electric rate analysis. This rate analysis looks at all aspects of current rates. The last time this was done was in 2011, which was also the time of our last rate increase. The rate analysis is scheduled to be complete by May 31st, and members will then be informed of the findings and any necessary rate changes as a result of that study. With all that being said, I want to close once again by thanking you for not only being a member, but taking the time to participate in this year's annual meeting. Also, I want to thank our director candidates, and the results of the election will be posted at the end of this video and on our website. The bill credit winners will be posted in the next edition of the Indiana Connections magazine and will also be available on our website once they have been completed. We also will have a copy of all these election results and grand prize winners available in our office. Thank you.